devoid of trees, children, and available parking. Cassie watched old Polish women in their babushkas push their black wire carts home from the pathmark and felt she'd arrived. That first gig was on the 11th floor of an iconic building on Kent Ave. The place was precancerous with artists' lofts. It was owned by a group of Hasids who rented the basement to a matzah company that baked the cracker tar black to be sold for seders around the city. A couple years after the Polly's first gig, the building would catch fire from those Orthodox bakers and burn, only to be rebuilt to spec within a year. Now it was still standing. Cassie and her bandmates plugged in at the back of a wide-open loft, 1,200 square feet of mostly unfurnished urban mixed-use space. At its back, a wall made of windows. Out across the bottom of the East River stood the buildings of the financial district, like some static play being eternally staged. Maybe 50 bespectacled recent college grads milled around drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon from the can and Miller High Life from the bottle. The Pollys played their set loud, closed with their blazing fast punk version of Ralph Stanley's Pretty Polly. If Kurt Cobain could cover Leadbelly, they could cover the Clinch Mountain Boys, and then a traditional bluegrass band set up to play next. How would anyone even hear them with the instant tinnitus in their ears, Cassie wondered. By the time the second band got their radio mic set up and huddled around it, bass far to the back and guitar, mandolin, banjo, and fiddle crouched near the mic, her ears had stopped ringing. The band was good. Unlike the banjo-fronted Ralph Stanley setup, now the mandolin player functioned as the lead instrument. He picked out sloppy lines, but he sang high and hard like a girl, and Cassie found herself paying more attention than she'd expected. There was a certain poetry to the fact that they did their own version of Pretty Polly themselves, a wink right back at the Pollys, making the old sound new sound old. After the gig ended, the mandolin player came over to her while she was packing up her bass. "You guys slayed tonight," he said. He was probably 5 or 6 years older than she was. Cassie could see where his hair was thinning around his widow's peak, light trickling its way through to his white scalp, though what hair he had still was longish. He was wearing a Kelly green t-shirt that said, "Gettin' Lucky in Kentucky." Part of Cassie couldn't help but wonder if he was making fun of her own home in the Midwest wearing it. "Probably should have opened for you instead of the other way around. I doubt anyone could even hear us after your amps." "They're not our amps," Cassie said. Then she went over to find the rest of the Pollys. She'd been sleeping with Natalia for a month now, and the last thing that relationship needed, that the band needed, was for their lead singer to think she was flirting with a bluegrass mandolin-playing, ironic thrift shop T-shirted 20-something-year-old boy. The best thing that came of that first Williamsburg gig was that the younger sister of the guy who booked shows for CBGB was there. She emailed Natalia, who did all the booking for the band, to tell her that she thought her brother would like them. Did they have a CD? They didn't, but they'd made a MySpace page where you could stream 2 tracks they'd recorded on Cassie's iMac back at Wellesley. Natalia sent a link. Before they knew it, they had a gig in Manhattan. It was 3 months away, but it was a gig. It didn't make Cassie's day job feel a whole lot better. Really, it was a night job, working as a cocktail waitress at the bar in the basement of the Chelsea Hotel. She only had to work 3 nights a week, and she made more than enough to pay rent. Bottle service meant sometimes a group of Russian oligarchs' kids might drop $2,000 in a night, 3 even. Might leave a half-full bottle on the table on their way to Scores. The tip, if they were drunk enough on Grey Goose shots, could be $200-300. It was exhausting work. It took Cassie a day to sleep off the nights. That left her the equivalent of a long weekend every week to rehearse, read, just walk around Manhattan and Brooklyn. The night of their CBGB show, Cassie was nervous, but not as nervous as she suspected. This was CBGB. Television had played here. Talking Heads and Big Star and Patti Smith. It was like she was walking between the silent ghosts of still-living Alex Chilton and David Byrne as she made her way to the space backstage. Sure, there was an ATM up front now, and next door they'd opened CB's gallery, where keening acoustic guitarists could sit on stools and whisper sing Elliott Smith covers into a mic like they'd been booked at the living room. But this was at least a version of living out her dreams. There were 4 bands on that night. The Pollys were second. They stood in front of the stage and watched as a 6'8" bundle of gangly limbs flailed around and screamed into the mic like he was the embodied ghost of Ian Curtis.